Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, Iran firing on 3 ships in the Strait of Hormuz this morning after President Donald Trump extended the deadline for the ceasefire with Iran. The Iranian attacks comes amid questions of who is really in charge in Iran now and what could be coming next. And Israel celebrating its Independence Day. We're going to talk to our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell about how Israel has survived through decades of wars and challenges to its very existence. Christians facing intense persecution in 2 countries, Syria in the Middle East and Nigeria in Africa. We're going to bring you a look at these dangers believers are facing there. And here in the United States, the economic consequences of the warfare with Iran, driving the price of oil higher and keeping up inflation, holding up mortgage rates and making it harder to buy a home, among many other things. All those stories and more right now on CBN NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
It is the 22nd of April and Wednesday. We're going to begin this half hour in the Middle East, where Iran is firing on ships in the Strait of Hormuz just hours after President Donald Trump extended the ceasefire deadline. In his announcement, the president pointed to what he calls a fractured Iranian government, raising the question of who's really in charge of Iran. CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell has our story.
Iran launched attacks on 2 ships in the Strait of Hormuz this morning, damaging 1 cargo vessel and ratcheting up the tensions after President Trump declared an extension of the ceasefire. Just hours after the announcement, the IRGC rallied government supporters with a parade including ballistic missiles in the heart of Tehran. The demonstrators chanted, "To strike the final blow," and hit the heart of Tel Aviv. Iran's state-run television quoted a military spokesman who threatened the U.S. He said, "In the event of aggression in any action against the Islamic Iran, the armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran will immediately attack the predetermined targets with power and teach the aggressive American and child-killing Zionist entity another lesson more severely than before." The show of force and rhetoric leads some to believe Iran is now being led by leaders willing to resume the war. The actions come almost at the same time as President Donald Trump's announcement extending the ceasefire. Trump said late Tuesday, at Pakistan's request, the U.S. is indefinitely extending its ceasefire as he waits for a unified proposal from the Islamic Republic.
Going to continue our coverage now with Chris. So, Chris, President Trump says the Iran's government is seriously fractured. Who are the different factions and what do they want?
Well, they seem to be 2 different factions, one represented by the president of Iran, the other one by, right now, the de facto leader of the IRGC. And it seems like they each want control. Right now, it seems like the IRGC, and we see that in the parade there in Tehran, they're flexing their muscles. They're hitting ships in the Strait of Hormuz. It seems like they want to take the war and maybe renew the war by provoking what's going on in the Strait of Hormuz, by this kind of rhetoric they're talking about. So that's one thing. It seems like the president is more conciliatory, maybe want to be more moderate, maybe actually realize that the country is in dire straits. The economy could collapse completely. So I think these are the 2 competing scenarios going on, the 2 competing, power bases there in Iran right now.
Is there any way of knowing who might eventually come out on top in this situation?
Well, I think you have to probably lean towards the people that have the guns, that have the power, that have the control of the military. I think that's what's happening, and I think that could be the reason why the talks collapsed in the first place, while the Iranian delegation decided not to go. So if I had to choose to see which way it may go, it may be the IRGC because they have the control of all these power bases that can lead Iran back to, unfortunately, it may be leading back to war. And I'll tell you something, Ephraim, I was talking to some people that are in touch with people inside. Many of the people inside don't want the negotiations to succeed. They want the war to go on because they want to make sure that the IRGC, that this regime is completely devastated, so there could be legitimate regime change.
President Trump says the U.S. used the ceasefire to restock its weapons. Is Israel now also prepared to resume the warfare?
Yeah, I think Israel's prepared. I think Iran is getting ready. The U.S. certainly is getting ready. I think everybody's using this pause militarily, to rearm, to restock, and to get ready for if negotiations fail and if the war resumes. I would add, as I was talking to these people, what's going on inside right now, there's militias that are coming from Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Iraq that are really controlling what's going on in the streets right now. Mass executions are still going on. So the people inside are hoping and praying that somehow this regime could fall.
You talked about what people in Iran may be thinking and saying. Does the Israeli public support continuing the war and feel it's necessary? Yeah,
they do. They feel like they don't want this war to end prematurely with leaving the Islamic regime in charge. I think over 60% of Israelis feel like the war has stopped prematurely and that it hasn't achieved the full goals. I know there's two goals. President Trump wanted to make sure that one thing, but the Israelis really would love to see regime change so that the threat they've faced for nearly 50 years would be gone completely.
What can you tell us about the Israeli soldiers jailed for destroying that statue of Jesus in a Lebanese Christian village?
Well, they've been arrested. They've been in prison right now. And I would say that many people feel, at least in Israel, that this is a bit of an outlier, that the IDF is not like this, that this is not the way they act. I would say that this has really upset many people in terms of the Jewish-Christian relations. 150 rabbis came out with a statement condemning it. So did Prime Minister Netanyahu, the president of Israel, Isaac Herzog, as well. I think most Israelis, as Prime Minister Netanyahu said, was shocked and saddened about this. And the relationship between Jews and Christians has really been dramatically changing, and I've seen that in the last 25 years. And also, I would argue maybe for the relations maybe better than ever in the past 2,000 years. And we see that culminating in just a few weeks ago where there was something called the Judeo-Christian Zionist Congress that brought Jewish and Christian leaders together to really combat what they believe is a threat to Western civilization, radical Islam.
Israel is celebrating its 78th anniversary today. What can you tell us about the resilience of the country through multiple wars and challenges all the way back to 1948?
Yeah. Well, it's amazing. It's a miracle that Israel is actually still surviving, and not only surviving, but thriving after facing so many enemies that surrounding them and trying to destroy them. There's a documentary that CBN's done called The Genius of Israel. And Israel is actually, despite all the challenges, all the wars, is the 8th happiest country in the world. And many people say what explains that is Shabbat. They observe the Shabbat. They also have the IDF, which is one way that people get together and support each other. And so it's really been a remarkable story that for 78 years, that it survived after 2,000 years of being in exile.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you so much, Chris Mitchell, all the way from Israel, joining us. We always appreciate your insights. Good to have you here this week. Coming up, the wave of terror against Christians. Islamic militants are murdering believers on their holy days. We're going to show you where it's happening and what is being done to stop it. We've got that story for when we come back. You're watching CBN NewsWatch.
Introducing a brand new way to start your morning. Get your daily quick start from CBN News. A quick read on the important news of the day delivered right to your inbox. Stay current on breaking news, politics, and entertainment. Discover how God is moving around the world and here at home. Plus, get exclusive stories and daily scripture encouragement just for you. Stay informed. Go to quickstart.news and subscribe today.
Hi, I'm Abigail Robertson, and this is Heaven Meets Earth.
There was something evil in the room.
Every week, experience extraordinary stories of divine intervention.
The tunnel and the angels are there for protection.
And discover stories of miracles.
I actually watched my own friend hold my lifeless body in his arms.
With over 4 million views.
You all are in for a treat.
Go to heavenmeetsearth.com today.
Christians in Nigeria and Syria are going through intense persecution. Islamist militants are attacking churches, villages, and neighborhoods, while governments do little to stop them. As Gary Lane shows us, ancient Christian communities that have survived for centuries are now facing extinction.
In parts of Nigeria, being a Christian can be a death sentence. During Easter week, Islamist gunmen unleashed a wave of terror on Christian communities, slaughtering more than 60 believers in villages, businesses, and churches, turning sacred days of celebration into unimaginable horror. On Palm Sunday alone, armed militants stormed Angwan Rakuba, a predominantly Christian neighborhood in the city of Jos. That night, they fired on villagers, killing at least a dozen innocent people. Todd Nettleton, vice president of the Voice of the Martyrs, is closely monitoring this escalating violence.
I don't know about the word genocide, but it is clear that Christians are being targeted. The gunmen were shouting Allahu Akbar as they were firing on the Christians. So that is not just criminal activity. That is clearly has a religious motivation. The fact that it took place in what I'm told is a 100% Christian area of the city is also a sign of Christians being targeted.
Witnesses say Fulani gunmen carried out the Jos attack.
We, of course, know about Boko Haram, but what don't people understand about what's going on with the Fulani? Some say these attacks aren't religious, they're tribal, so what do you tell them?
If they really believe that, I don't know what to say. They've fallen for a complete lie, because I've been working in Nigeria since 2011. And the Fulani will tell you to your face that they want to get rid of Christianity.
Judd Saul, founder of Equipping the Persecuted, warns the Fulani militants are driving to establish an Islamic caliphate in Nigeria, with next to no government intervention. This past Christmas, President Donald Trump took decisive action, ordering missile strikes on ISIS terrorist camps in northwest Nigeria. In February, Nigeria's First Lady, Oluremi Tinubu, told CBN's John Jessup the Nigerians welcomed the U.S. support.
I would thank President Trump for what he did for us in Sokoto State, and I think it really helped during even the current president, the Christian Association of Nigeria. The president said this is the first Christmas that none was attacked.
Then Easter week turned deadly. On Easter Eve, armed Fulani jihadists stormed the Christian community of Mbalam in Benue State. They burned homes, chased down fleeing families, and massacred at least 17 believers, including worshippers preparing for Easter services. Similar attacks swept through Kaduna and other areas. Saul's organization had issued an alert just 3 weeks earlier, warning that Fulani militants would unleash violence during Easter week.
We've been issuing terror alerts for the last 2 years with 93% accuracy. We've issued over 150 of them. And in virtually all cases where we've issued terror alerts, the Nigerian government did nothing, the attacks happened, and then the Nigerian government intervened after the attacks happened and ended up punishing Christians. We've seen very few terrorists ever brought to justice.
Meanwhile, in Syria, on the eve of Palm Sunday, a violent mob of young Muslim men on motorcycles stormed the predominantly Christian town of Sukailabia in Hama province. They rampaged through the streets, looting stores, smashing vehicles, destroying church property, and even toppling a revered statue of the Virgin Mary, leaving fear and devastation in their wake.
The security forces, who are essentially government officials, showed up, and instead of de-escalating, instead of helping protect the Christian women who were being harassed, they arrested the men who were defending the woman and defending the town from outside incursion.
Hekmat Abu Khater, a Young Voices debate host and former Christian resident of Aleppo, Syria, warns that Christians are leaving the country because they do not trust Ahmed el-Shara's government to protect them.
The government, unfortunately, whether intentionally or because they are simply unwilling to control the pogroms that ensued, unable to stem the tide of violence. And we saw that with the Druze in this past summer, and we saw it with the Alawite Coast, last March.
Since last year, Syria has seen horrific violence against its religious minorities. That includes over 1,400 Alawites slaughtered along the coast in March 2025. 25 Christians killed in a bombing at St. Elias Church in Damascus in June. And as many as 2,000 Druze massacred in Sweda in July. 15 years ago, before the Civil War, nearly 2.5 million Christians lived in Syria, 1 in every 10 people. Today, that number has plummeted to roughly 300,000, just 1 to 2% of the population. Abu Qatar warns that Syria's Christian community may soon disappear entirely.
We need to be honest about what's happening to this Christian community in the birthplace of Christianity, where Saul walked in the road to Damascus. Sharia is now officially the source of jurisprudence in the country. Everyone that I know from my Syrian Christian community that has remained in Syria are now trying to find ways out into the West, whether that be to the U.S., to Canada, to France, etc.
Whether in Nigeria, Syria, or anywhere else, Todd Nettleton urges believers worldwide to raise awareness and fervently pray for persecuted Christians.
Let's pray for God's protection. But let's also pray that they experience the presence of Christ. I pray that for myself. I pray that for my own church. Let's pray for opportunities for our brothers and sisters to share the gospel, even sometimes with their persecutors.
Still ahead, warfare in Iran has led to a spike in oil prices, which could keep inflation higher than expected here in the United States, and in turn could mean higher mortgage rates, making it harder to purchase a home. We're going to have the story for you. It's coming up right after this. You're watching CBN NewsWatch. High oil prices are leading to economic consequences far beyond the gas tank. There's concern here at home about the impact of high prices on mortgage rates and the already strained housing market. CBN's Washington correspondent Jenna Browder explains.
What's happening thousands of miles away could hit much closer to home, right in homebuyers' wallets.
There are some pretty far-reaching ripple effects here.
As the Iran conflict drives up oil prices, economists warn that could keep inflation stubbornly high, which affects the housing market. Elevated inflation makes the Federal Reserve less likely to cut interest rates, and in some cases could raise them. The domino effect hits mortgage rates, which have already been hovering near multi-year highs.
Oil prices are a key input in all of this because oil touches so many aspects of the economy. Obviously, what we put in our cars, air travel, these are some of the direct impacts, but there are a lot of indirect impacts. Really transporting goods from point A to point B throughout the supply chain. Higher oil prices can really force inflation higher across the economy. And then when inflation is higher, of course, the Fed needs to keep rates higher to try to clamp down on that, but it just has ripple effects throughout.
Markets began reacting to the warfare in Iran right from the start. Higher oil prices pushed up government bond yields, the key driver of mortgage rates, making borrowing more expensive. The result? A housing market that had just started to show signs of relief for buyers has begun tightening again. Higher mortgage rates mean higher monthly payments, pricing out some buyers and keeping others on the sidelines.
As recently as February, we thought there could be 2, maybe 3 cuts this year. We actually saw the average 30-year fixed mortgage rate briefly go below 6% in February for the first time in about 3.5 years. And there was a feeling that maybe it could go as low as about 5.5, and that would spur some people to get in off the sidelines. Now a lot of that momentum has reversed. So whether we're talking housing or car loans, credit card rates, things like that, borrowing could remain costlier for the balance of the year.
Ted Rossman with Bankrate tells CBN News the uncertainty is slowing home sales. Numbers from the National Association of Realtors show sales in March down about 3.5% month over month and about 1% year over year. Those sales hitting a 9-month low last month.
Some of the optimism that we had for the 2026 housing market back in February has been dampened quite a bit.
Oil prices dipped slightly following news of a temporary ceasefire, although analysts cautioned the volatility isn't going away. And as long as global instability keeps pressure on energy prices and inflation, lower mortgage rates could be out of reach. Even small shifts in mortgage rates can make a huge difference for home buyers. So until inflation cools and things slow down globally, experts say to not expect much meaningful relief. Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Coming back with an encouraging word for your Wednesday. Stay with us. You're watching CBN NewsWatch.
Is there a spiritual war going on around us? Are angels and demons real? Let's investigate.
And I was struck that all throughout history, the vast majority of cultures not only believed in evil spirits, but believed in possessions.
And every major religion believes in angels.
The question isn't, is there a spiritual world? The question is, which spirit is the most powerful?
I kept hearing,
"Stop, don't go there."
and within a matter of minutes, a bomb went off.
All of a sudden, we hear this guttural-sounding voice come out of her in the back.
Your mumbo-jumbo prayers will fail. And the one from the driver's side reached over and put his hands right in the middle of the flat spot. My heart started supernaturally. No CPR, no medicine.
What I uncovered changes everything.
Investigating the supernatural, angels and demons. Yours for a gift of any dollar amount.
It's time now for your Wednesday word, and today's word is faithful. Know this, God is faithful. He does what he says, how he says, when he says. Your faith in him is well placed and well deserved. He keeps his promises, and there is no failure in him. With that word, make this a wonderful Wednesday, and be sure to have yourself a wonderful rest of the week. Do that on purpose, knowing God is indeed faithful. Well, that will do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can always find more of our news programs online at cbnnews.com. You can also find them on YouTube. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today or any day. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com. You can also reach out and touch us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and X. We look forward to seeing you right back here same time tomorrow. Goodbye, God bless. Thank you so much for watching.